Before Jayasuriya, Sachin Tendulkar, Virender Sehwag, and the list goes on. The man who redefined opening the batting was Saeed Anwar. No foot movement, no force, nothing, just the brilliant hand-eye coordination. Strike rate of 85.03 with over 10,000 runs and the next best in his generation. Kris Srikant with strike rate of 71. 194 in Chennai in 1997, then the highest ODI score until Sachin eclipsed it 13 years later. That was big enough gap for Saeed Anwar to be considered an outlier. Maybe even the paradigm shift before the paradigm shift. The guy who was doing for over 3 years what Jayasuriya and Tendulkar would be feted for. He made his one-day debut on the first day of 1989, but it was not until Benson and Hedges Tri-Series the following year on February 13, Pakistan was sure that they wanted him to open. 2 days before in Brisbane, coming in early at 1 down, Anwar had breezed to 24 ball 37 against Australia. It made sense to move him up, and how? He made 27 of 30 and then within the week 127 of 99 balls and 43 of 36. On the runs chart, he ended the Tri-Series third. On strike rate 105.39 across 9 games, he was a chart of his own, with more force and sixes than anyone. By the time Jayasuriya and Tendulkar happened, Anwar's had been a disrupted career. He only played in 42 of Pakistan's 108 ODIs from his debut to the day Jayasuriya opened. Injury robbed him of the 1992 World Cup, which should have been his coming out. But his body of work by then, 641 innings, was substantial enough to leave little doubt that began with him. Now, if you didn't think of him quite like that, you're hardly alone. The oversight is of a piece with his entire career. But at least in ODIs, Anwar is at least ultimately acknowledged as a great. And how couldn't he be? As the highest scoring opener of the 90s, one of the most transformative decades of the format. His test career, on the other hand, remains entirely overlooked and grossly under-celebrated. And nearly 20 years on, we can only guess at why this is. It wasn't a long career, and these days, greatness is pegged to longevity and endurance. Anwar's 55 test unintentionally placed him in a less abundant and relevant era. Hanif Mohammad, after all, played 55 tests. The sample is also small enough that it stands vulnerable to being dulled in comparison to ordinariness. Mohammad Hazif also played 55 tests. That was a byproduct of Pakistan's early wavering on Anwar. He didn't play a test for 3 years after that pair in his test debut in. Despite averaging 68 in first-class cricket the season before he was picked, so deserving more than just one test, and nearly 48 between his first and second test. The 188 not out in Kolkata is a good example. Potentially his finest test innings, a genuine epic, yet it's like a middle child memory from the game. Ignored between 2 deliveries from Shoaib Akhtar, Sachin Tendulkar's run out, and Moin Khan's rear guard and jostling, instead with Javagal Srinath's 13 wickets for attention. A test 100 in every test playing country, highest ever average of all openers in the decade, 20 innings or more, and he averaged slightly more away, 45.66 than at home, 45.36. Post-retirement, he has shrunk further away, now but the dot on the game's horizon. It's admirable in the way you can admire someone who resolutely chooses not to hang on the past glories. But because he's not that ex-player, coaching or clogging up news feeds all the time, he has been easier to forget. More than anything though, the aesthetics of his game have insidiously engulfed the test impact of it. As Vaughan, in picking him as the best Pakistani batsman he had bowled to, wrote, "It's the style you remember, not the figures." It was always easy to forget Anwar, who was not being pretty for the sake of being pretty, but to some bigger and more functional purpose.